All right. So I'm gonna have you guys watch this little video real quick about the Indus River Valley, because that's what we're talking about today. Let me move this up here. All right, here we go. There we go.
You're projecting. See if the volume is turned on the computer itself.
All right.
No, on the.
Oh, the computer. Yeah, that's what I just did. There we go. Okay, it's working now.
I just hit those. Better to mute one and not.
The Indus River Valley was
Now
filled
you
with
turn
cities
off
that were
the
thriving.
audio right there.
Harappa and
How do I do
Mohenjo-daro
that?
are two examples of these cities.
Make sure the audio's played through.
Your 403, take out the internal speakers. See if it plays through the 403 only.
Daily life in the Indus River Valley was not too different than ours today.
Of course.
Let's take a look. Discovered in what could be a granary. These weights and scale
Never done
are
that before.
thought to have been used to measure grain.
Turn up all the way.
Well, hello there. The Indus River Valley was filled with cities that were thriving. Harappa and Mohenjo-daro are two examples of these cities. Daily life in the Indus River Valley was not too different than ours today. Let's take a look. Discovered in what could be a granary, these weights and scale are thought to have been used to measure grain. That measured grain could have been used to pay taxes or traded for other goods. The Great Bath is a 39-foot-long pool built of waterproof brick. Citizens probably enjoyed their time cooling off in the bath on a hot day. The Great Bath is also thought to have been used in religious rituals because of the importance of bathing rituals in Hinduism. Many statues have been discovered that display how men may have dressed and groomed themselves. Also, beautiful stone beads that have been found point to the types of jewelry the women may have worn. Small stone seals that have been discovered are somewhat of a mystery to archaeologists. More than 400 pictographs have been found, and archaeologists have made their best educated guesses as to what they mean. Some think these were used as charms to keep away evil. Others believe that merchants may have stamped their goods with wax tags with the impression of a stone seal. Like any civilized settlement, the early Indus River Valley civilizations needed to get rid of their waste. P.U. Archaeologists discovered a network of clay pipes that connected Mohenjo-daro's buildings and homes, which were used to rid the city of waste and dirty water. Houses were an integral part of society in the early Indus River Valley civilizations. Houses had flat roofs and were 2 stories high. Archaeologists believe that the poorer people lived in smaller homes and the richer lived in larger ones. Archaeologists have also uncovered many handcrafted objects that could have been used for games. And the game of chess is also said to have been invented in India. As evident in its many artifacts and discoveries, the Indus River Valley civilizations were large, well-planned cities, and its people enjoyed a high quality of life. Well, that's all for this edition of History in 5 Minutes or Less.
Okay, after that it gets kind of cringy, so I'm just gonna skip that. All right. All right. So let's think of some things. What do we see in there? Like what? Like tell me some things we saw in the video. Drainage. Good. So we have a sewage system, right? Right. What else? Housing. What about the housing? Okay. What does it kind of look like? A box. What are boxes? What do we call? What type of housing do we call that looks like boxes or compartments? Stucco. Yeah, they would have been kind of similar to that. What else? Starts with an A. Apartment, right? Look like little apartments, right? If we go back, it looked like little squares with a bunch of people inside of them. So do you think this would have been really a lot of people in one little tiny box? Yeah, okay, that's usually what apartments are. There's a bunch of little box, bunch of people in them. So the population of it, they would have had a higher population based off of just excess of food, the availability to water in their case. So they always have water, right? From drainage, from sewage. What else did you guys see in there? A swimming pool. Okay, what's significant about that? Yes, sir.
They could use it for religion.
Okay, religion. What else? Cool off, bathed maybe. So what else? What do we see on other points in history? Do we see baths from other civilizations maybe? Yes, sir. Hot springs. Okay, good. What else? Think a little bit ahead. Couple thousand years. Think ahead a little bit. In Rome, exactly. So you see these ideas of we have an excess. So they have excess water to be able to have these baths, to be able to have a luxury. So that kind of shows a little bit of prosperity, right? So if you have excess of stuff, that means you have an abundance. You can kind of waste it because sitting in a bunch of water kind of waste it, right? You can't drink that water after. So it shows a little bit of prosperity, right? What else do we see? Yes, sir. Games. Okay. So what do games kind of signify? They had fun. What else? They had time to lose. That's very important. What else? Entertainment. Yes. They were smart enough to make games. Yes. So if you have time, yes, sir. Yeah, with the dice, probably, right? So if you have time to be able to make games and then secondly play them, doesn't that show that you have an excess? You have a bunch of resources. You have the ability to thrive and waste time playing a game, because technically a game doesn't do anything for society besides entertainment. It doesn't feed people. In this case, it doesn't create any big road systems or stuff like that. It's something that was made for pleasure, which kind of shows how far these guys were along in their technological advancement, how much food they had, and how prosperous they were. All right. What else do we see? Anything else? I'm sorry? Jewelry. Okay, what does jewelry signify? Wealth. Yeah. So they had wealth. They had a culture. Jewelry also signifies a type of culture, because different jewelry signify different cultures. Like the wedding band. That wasn't around until, when did they start? Was it the 1900s when the wedding band became popular? Or at least the diamond wedding band in the United States?
The overall wedding, that's a good question. I'm not
I
sure.
believe it was the 1900s, the beginning of the 1900s.
I'm not.
Anyways, there's a cultural thing with jewelry. Jewelry comes about because of culture. You don't just wear jewelry just to wear jewelry. There's something in your culture that shows that it's either looks good or you think it looks good because of some type of cultural event. Jewelry is very cultural in itself. It's an expression. It's a way to express yourself. So yes, jewelry is a good one. So a little 1930s? Was it 1930s? Okay. Anyways, so on Friday, we're gonna skip from this a little bit. You guys do have a map quiz. I don't know if you guys saw it in Canvas already, but so we're gonna do a map quiz just so if I know, you guys know what we're talking about when we talk about these areas. So I'll go over this a little bit later, but these are some of the stuff you need to know. It's on Canvas, so don't worry about it too much, like writing it down right now. But right now, we've gone over these first three rivers. We're gonna go over this one tomorrow. The Indus and Ganges, we're going to go over today. Upper and Lower Mesopotamia, we've already gone over those. Chinese River we'll go over tomorrow. And today we're going over Indus River. So you'll have this on your test, just so you're prepared and you can see it. All right. So the area we're talking about today, let me go to it, is in the Indus and Ganges River valleys. So these would have been right in this little area right here, right in here. You see this? Right in this little area. So you have this spot right here. So right here you have the Indus River, would have been in this area, and then right over here you have the Ganges River. And see, this L is what we're talking about today. It's L right here. This is the civilization we're talking about. It's usually called the Indus civilization, but it encompasses both of those river civilizations. All right. So we'll get into our PowerPoint. All right. So the Indus River civilization is called the Plan City. They're planned cities, so they have structure. There's a meaning to it, the way they're placed. They're well built. They look good. All right. So does anybody know what a subcontinent is? Anybody give me an idea what a subcontinent is? Yes, sir.
Kind of like a small area that's considered a continent, kind of like Central America or.
So that's a good way to put it. Like Central America, yes, it's part of a continent, but it's considered its own entity. It's its own thing. So India and Pakistan and Bangladesh are all part of the Indian subcontinent. What happened is India looked kind of like how Australia, Indonesia, how there's a bunch of islands, you know? So it used to be out there by itself. But eventually, throughout the millions of years, it crashed into the European Euro-Asian continent, right? So, and then it created these giant mountains called the Himalayas, and that's where like Mount Everest is. You guys know that's the tallest mountain in the world. That's where it's at. So if you have really tall mountains, what does that do for you? A defense, a border. It's hard to climb up a mountain, probably, right? Has anybody climbed a mountain before? Or just ran up a big hill? It's not too easy, is it? It's not easy running up a hill. So imagine you're doing that with armor, weapons, supplies. That gets kind of hard, right? That's a hard trek. So it became a natural border for most of the Indian subcontinent. Huh? Yeah, I know. I forgot my running shoes, but it's better than getting wet.
Ashton would know all about that stuff.
Yeah. So on top of this, so to the north they have mountains, right? So we already talked about that. To the east there's desert. What's to the east of India? Anybody can tell me?
Like,
The Middle East. The Middle East is mostly desert and arid land, right? So that's what we had to the east, right? Wait, that's not the east. We've been west. East and west. So there's east, and then also to the west there was a desert too. So the east was also desert, and then to the west is also desert. To the south there is another dry plateau, like a very dry. Could have been grasslands. You could consider them grasslands, and then also it's flanked by a mountain. So it's a plateau flanked by a mountain. And then so the whole place is called the Indo-Gangetic, I think that's how you say it, fertile plain region. So it's like that L. It's a big L. That's just a fertile plain right next to the rivers. And then there's also a narrow strip of tropical land along the coast. Right? All right. What do you say? Can anybody tell me what a monsoon is? Without reading that. What is it, sir?
it's like, I guess kind of like a hurricane.
Okay, so you're close, but the thing that you're thinking of is a typhoon, and that's what the counterpart of a hurricane is in the Eastern Hemisphere. Yes, sir. Tsunami, no. So a tsunami is a giant wave, right? When we think of tsunamis, they're giant waves. So what a monsoon is seasonal winds that come off of the ocean. It brings different things for India. So during the winter, it brings. Everything okay? Okay. It brings dry, cold air, right? In this case, and in the summer, it rains. It brings lots of rain. So this is where we get the flooding season. If you've ever been to India or seen stuff about India, it rains a lot there during this time. So Environmental challenges. So just like the Mesopotamians, the Indus River is very unpredictable. It had a very unpredictable flooding pattern, and also the river kind of changes course. What do you think? What do you think's significant about that? Yes, sir. Maybe. Yeah, we could see that. Yeah. What else? Yes, sir.
Some places would have the river at some times and other places.
Exactly. So it's unpredictable. So maybe the river could flood your field one year, but it doesn't flood it the next year, so you have no fertile ground, right? So it's unpredictable. It's hard to figure out where you should plant, where you shouldn't plant, where you should create a city, where you shouldn't create a city, right? All right. So this area was larger than Mesopotamia or Egypt. This is a large area. I showed you guys that little L. That's a large, huge area to have to be to control, at least at this time. So about 9,000 years ago, they started agriculture and domesticating animals in this region. But about 3,200 years BC, people started farming in like little villages and stuff like that. So they had spread out cultural groups, but they weren't like set villages. And that's when about 3,200 BC is when there were set villages that were considered a civilization at that point. Planned cities. All right. Does anybody know what a grid is? Anybody tell me what a grid looks like? What's a grid? Squares, right? How are city blocks usually set up in? Squares, grids. So you guys have seen this in math, right? You guys have seen something like that in math, right? So city center is right here. What does that look like? What is Stephenville? How many roads come off of Stephenville, the square? 4 main roads, right? There's a bunch of other roads, but there's 4 main roads. So you have a way, so it's grid. So look. So these roads are your main roads. And there's also side roads, right? And then there's other side roads that connect at the same time. And so that's what a grid is. It sets it up in a grid. That's pretty complex, right? It's not just randomly spaced. It's not just a random system. So grids kind of show what? What can you think of? What would grids show the civilization? Yes, sir. Okay. Okay, they're advanced. How are they advanced? Does anybody want to help? Yes, sir. Okay, organized. Who organizes people usually? King or government, right? So this shows that they kind of had a pretty advanced government to be able to set up these regulations, these systems that are created, right? So we have that. What about, it says bricks. What's significant about bricks? Does anybody know how hard it is to make a brick? It's not just like moving rocks, right? You don't just move rocks, right? You actually have to make a brick. You have to form it. You have to get the right materials. You have to then kiln it, fire it, make it hard. So it takes a lot to be able to just put bricks down. So this was more than just rocks and dirt. They actually had like bricks that would signify streets, buildings, stuff like that, right? It's kind of cool. So what about plumbing and sewage? It's pretty important, right? Yeah? Got to have clean water. Got to get rid of your poop, right? And feces and trash and stuff like that. Dead bodies, stuff, your dead cat got in the sewer somewhere. We got to get it out of here somewhere. So stuff like that. So this civilization was called a Harpian, which is named after the Harappa, or Harappa. I think that's how you say it. It's Harappa. I believe that's how you say it. I'm not great at saying those type of things. But yeah, so that's what this civilization is known by, but it's also known as the Indus Valley Civilization. So the Harappan planning, right? So it had city built of mud brick platforms. So what's significant about a platform? What does that help with? What does a platform do? So it brings you up higher, right? So if you're above the water, you're safer, right? Instead of under the water at the same level, you're safe, right? Does anybody know what a citadel is by any chance? Yes, sir. Okay, close. We're getting there. That's a good guess. What else? So it has churches in it. Yes, sir. So it's a center. So we're getting closer. So a citadel, I have to draw it, the best way to explain it. So a citadel, what's cool about a citadel, it is probably one of the most protected areas in a city. Because you have, right, here's your city. This is how your city wall is laid out, because this is just how so the citadel is the center of the city with all your important buildings, your granaries, your banks, stuff like that, your palace. And so that's what a citadel is. It's the middle part of the city with all the central buildings of government, of power, of religion, stuff like that. And it's one of the most protected parts in the city, right? So we still have that street grid system, 30 feet wide, right? 30 feet, that's pretty wide streets, right? Pretty big system. So something interesting. So the houses, we talked about the houses earlier. They're separated in what we call like alleys, right? You guys know what an alley is? A little space between buildings. They have little alleys. That's the best way to put it. Interesting about it was they had public restrooms. How do you think the restrooms would have looked like? Take a guess. You said bucket? Like a hole? Okay, good. Yeah, something like that. I'm going to tell you what it would have looked like. All right. So let's say you have to go to the bathroom, right? You don't have one in your house. You have to use a public restroom. Do you think it's very private? No, right? So you get there's this little box, right? So you're sitting on this box, just like that. See this box? Yeah. So there's little holes in it, right? Get your little holes. Put your bum on, right? Little holes. And then you sit on it, right? Just like a toilet. So everybody's sitting right next to each other. Yeah. They're just holding hands, right? Yeah. So everybody's sitting right next to each other, right? And so what happened, right here, you're just pooping away. And so right under this, there's actually water. What do you think that water does? Carries it away, right? So everybody would come, they'd sit in these alleys and poop right next to each other, get to know, chat it up, talk about the news, right? Have a good old time. It's just like the guys' urinals, kind of like that. No, there might have been, but this is the most basic form. But there's a guy rule where there's supposed to be one space between, so this guy's breaking that rule. But anyways, so this is how you'd use the restroom if you didn't have one in your house. So some people had them in the house. If you had more money, you had the ability, yeah, you could have somebody build a sewage system into your house. All right. I don't think they had Febreze either, so it probably stunk. All right, so language. When we looked at the language system, what do they have? What were they talking about the writing and language? The hieroglyph, they're like kinographs, right? Or hieroglyphics. So it's very close to it. It's hard. We don't know anything really. We know what they are, but we just don't know what it says. This language and these symbols haven't been deciphered yet. We don't know what it means. There's a lot of speculation about it. So this is still something that's in the works. But we know that they had a certain form of language and a certain writing system. The culture. So they seem to have a uniform culture. Does anybody know what a uniform culture is? So all kind of similar, yes. So they would have had like a wealthy and poor, like there would have been people that were wealthy and poor, but their social class wasn't as rigid as like Egypt or Mesopotamia. It didn't have like a hierarchy as much. There was still your king and priest and stuff, but it wasn't as rigid. That makes sense. You can also see where animals start to become important to culture. What other religion does that look like? Huh? Hinduism, good. Hinduism is a traditional Indian religion. It comes from out of India, and so does Buddhism, but Buddhism's a little bit different. So yes, it kind of looks like that. So we kind of see this predecessor, maybe this predecessor to Hinduism. Good. Again, with the Tories, it kind of signifies prosperity. We're going to reiterate that. Because you have time to do something. You have time to waste. Roles of religion. So they would have had a theocracy, just like the other two civilizations we talked about. Something would have had to been mandated by God, or you had this idea of you got your ruling from God, something like that, the gods. So we have some artifacts which kind of shows us that it has links. The religion is like a proto-Hindu religion, right? So trade. Who do you think they traded with? Their neighbors, right? So their neighbors within India, Pakistan, Bangladesh, right? Do you think they could have traded with China? You sure? You see how close they are? Maybe. Yeah, just take a while. It's a maybe. So China and India, maybe. But what do you think about Mesopotamia? It says it up there, right? So yeah, they traded with that Mesopotamia. Do you think Egypt might have known about the Indus River Valley? Maybe, right? Because who do they trade with? Mesopotamia, right? So there's probably goods coming from India to Egypt through Mesopotamia, and vice versa. So we kind of got to look at it like this. Let's look at this. Let's look at how big this area is. All right. So here's India. Here's about where it's at, right in here. This area right here, right? Everybody see that? This area is about where they were at, right? Where's Mesopotamia located? In Iraq, right? So look how far that is. How far do you think that's a really long trek? Yeah, it's pretty long. Probably take a month, maybe a couple months, right? Well, do you guys ever heard of anything called the Silk Road?
Yeah.
So the Silk Road came out of China, which is over here, right? Where did the Silk Road go? To Europe, right? To Rome, usually, is what we're talking about when we talk about the Silk Road. Look how far that is. From here, maybe all the way across here, down into here, up into here. That's a long way, right? So do you think this is a little bit more doable back then? Yeah, so they had trade with Mesopotamia. It wasn't too far. And then if you look at China to India, that's not too far either. Do you think they could have maybe traded with China? They found a different way through the mountain? Yeah. So you could have seen a sense of international trade, a complexity even. So the decline of this civilization. So signs of decline started about 1750 BC, right? So why do you think an earthquake could cause a decline of a civilization? Break stuff. What else? Not just break stuff. Yes. It can kill people. It can break stuff. What else could it do? It makes people go crazy. Maybe they think the gods are punishing them, so they have to leave the land. Maybe it kills all the crops because it destroys vital farming areas, or it cuts off vital farming areas. What about floods? What do you think floods can do to a civilization? They can destroy them, yeah? Take off soil that is needed. What is so soil deposition? What is that? Depletion. Gets rid of the topsoil, right? What are you farming? Topsoil. It's hard to farm in the little hard rock, right? You need that topsoil to be able to farm. So what happened is a combination of floods and earthquakes causes a decline in the civilization. So the Aryans, about 1500 BC, came in and started taking over this area. So the Aryans are considered, or probably came out of the Stan area, is what we call it, right in this area. Pakistan, Iran, Afghanistan, this area is probably where the Aryan culture came from, out of this area right in here, probably the Persian mountains regions. All right, back over here. And so that's it on that one. So before we move on to your quiz, I'm going to try to help you guys out with your test. So I would pay attention so you have an idea of what we're going to be going over. So you have one of your areas is called is over the Tigris and Euphrates River. What civilizations between the Tigris and Euphrates? Mesopotamia, right? So the way I remember the two rivers there, the Tigris and the Euphrates, right? So you have the Tigris, which is kind of sounds like a tiger, right? What do tigers do? They hunt, right? They jump on top of their prey to hunt. So the tiger is jumping on top of Euphrates, its prey. So Tigris is above Euphrates. That's how I used to always remember it. So I was taught it's an easy way to remember it. So the Tigris does what? On top of which river? Good. And what civilization is between the two rivers? Good. Oh. Yeah. Yep. It's gonna be something like that. You'll see. It's on Canvas. Where's the not?
There's an announcement on Canvas already for you to have a study guide off of, like knowing where those things are at. You
So-
can practice on that.
So where's the Nile River located? Somebody want to wake him up? So where's the Nile River located? Egypt, right? All right. So do you guys remember the Upper and Lower Egypt? So upper is what? South. Okay, and then lower is. Okay, so for some of you guys that are confused still. So this is where upriver is. Upriver is usually where the current comes from, right? So you're upriver. So upriver is south. So this is Upper Egypt, right? So you're gonna go downriver towards the ocean. So that's Lower Egypt. Make sense? Yeah. Everybody got that? All right. I'm glad you guys got that because not everybody did. All right. So we have that. So the Nile River is in Egypt, upper and lower, right? What do you think? What's the what river did we just talk about? Start with an I. The Indus River. Where is that located? In India. Okay. So we're gonna go back. So the Indus River is probably around in this area, right? Right in here. Where do you think the Ganges River is located? Remember how I told you how to remember this? So it's an L. So if we follow this, what do you think the Ganges River is at? Right there. So we're gonna get into that. That's where they and which civilizations between those two spots in that part? The Indus River civilization. Good. And so we'll get into the Yellow River tomorrow, and the Yellow River is over in this area, and that's where China is gonna be. So we'll get into that tomorrow. All right. Sound good? All right. So your quiz is chapter 2, section 3. All right. You guys can get to work. You guys have around 11 minutes left.